The street lights cast long shadows across South Shore Drive as Sergeant Philip Benjamin's taxi pulled up to his red brick two-story home. It was 2:17 a.m. on a humid July morning, and the neighborhood was eerily quiet. After 15 months in Afghanistan, all he wanted was to surprise his wife, Lucy, and hold her in his arms again. He wasn't supposed to be home for another 3 weeks. The early return was his gift to her. Their 10th anniversary was just days away. In his duffel bag, alongside his combat fatigues and dog tags, lay a white gold necklace he'd ordered specially from Dubai. The cab driver, an elderly man named Earl, helped him with his bags. "Welcome home, soldier," Earl said, refusing the extra tip Philip tried to give him. "Your family must be really happy to have you back." Philip smiled, thinking of Lucy's face when she'd see him. "They don't know I'm coming. I wanted to surprise them," he replied. Earl nodded, got back in his cab, and drove off into the night. Philip stood for a moment looking at his house. Something felt off. There was a car he didn't recognize parked in front, a black Chrysler 300 with tinted windows and custom rims. Probably one of the neighbors got a new ride, he thought, but a knot began forming in his stomach. The house was dark except for a faint glow from their bedroom window upstairs. The porch light was off, which was strange. Lucy always left it on at night. As he approached, he noticed other small details that seemed wrong. The front garden, which Lucy had always tended meticulously, looked overgrown. Empty beer bottles lined the porch railing. Using his key, Philip quietly opened the front door. The living room smelled different, unfamiliar cologne mixed with marijuana smoke. Their wedding photo, which had always sat on the entry table, was face down. Then he heard it, muffled sounds coming from upstairs. His military training kicked in automatically. Moving silently, he set down his bags and climbed the stairs, each step calculated and quiet. The sounds grew clearer, rhythmic creaking, heavy breathing, a man's low grunt. The master bedroom door was closed but not fully latched. Yellow light spilled through the crack, along with the unmistakable sounds of sex. Philip felt his world tilting sideways, but his body moved with the calm precision that had kept him alive in combat. He pushed the door open. The scene burned itself into his mind in fragments, tangled sheets, brown skin against brown skin, his wife's legs wrapped around a stranger's waist. Their wedding picture on the nightstand watched it all. Time seemed to stop. Nobody moved. Then Lucy screamed. The man, muscular with dreadlocks and a tribal tattoo across his back, rolled off and reached for something on the floor. In the yellow lamplight, metal glinted, a gun. Philip's training took over. In Afghanistan, hesitation meant death. He crossed the room in 2 steps, caught the man's wrist before he could raise the weapon, and drove his other fist into the man's throat. The gun clattered to the floor. What happened next played out like a horrible dream. Lucy screaming, the man gasping for air but coming up swinging. Fists connected with flesh, rolling on the floor. The gun slid under the bed. Blood sprayed across white walls. In the chaos, Philip's hand found the gun. The man lunged. 2 shots rang out, then silence. Lucy Benjamin stood in front of her bathroom mirror, carefully applying her MAC Ruby Woo lipstick. At 32, she still turned heads. Her gym routine kept her figure tight, and she took pride in her appearance. Today, she'd chosen a fitted red dress that hugged every curve. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Job, "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby." Philip still wasn't due back for 3 more weeks. She typed back quickly, "All clear. Come by after 9. Lucy stared at her reflection, trying to quiet the guilt that gnawed at her stomach. She and Philip had been high school sweethearts, married right after graduation. He joined the army to provide a better life for them, and she'd supported his decision. But the deployments got longer, the distance grew wider, and somewhere along the way, she'd started feeling lonely. Job Williams had walked into her life 6 months ago at the hair salon where she worked. He was everything Philip wasn't: present, spontaneous, dangerous in an exciting way. What started as innocent flirting turned into drinks after work, then secret meetings, and finally into something she couldn't control. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Philip on FaceTime. "Hey, baby," he said, his face pixelated on the small screen. He looked tired, dust from the Afghan desert still visible on his uniform. "Hey," she answered, forcing a smile. "How are you? Missing you like crazy. 3 more weeks feel like forever, but hey, our anniversary is coming up. I got something special planned. Can't wait." She lied, her stomach churning. They talked for a few minutes about nothing important. She told him about work at the salon, carefully avoiding any mention of Job, who'd become a regular customer just to see her. "I love you," Philip said before hanging up. "Stay safe." "Love you too," she replied, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. At the salon that day, her co-worker Shanice noticed her distraction. "Girl, you're playing with fire," Shanice warned while mixing hair dye. "Job might be fine as hell, but he's got a record, and Philip, that man loves you for real." I know, Lucy sighed, arranging supplies. "It just happened, and now I can't stop." "Can't stop? You're gonna get somebody killed," Shanice muttered. "Mark my words." By evening, Lucy had pushed away all thoughts of consequences. She'd ordered Philip's favorite takeout from Harold's Chicken, letting the delivery driver think it was for her husband. She changed the sheets, lit scented candles, and poured 2 glasses of wine. At 9:15 p.m., Job's black Chrysler 300 pulled up. He entered using the key she'd given him last month, looking like Sin in dark jeans and a fitted black shirt that showed off his muscled arms. "Damn, baby," he said, pulling her close. "You trying to kill me in that dress?" They barely made it upstairs before clothes started coming off. Job had brought weed and more wine. They smoked, drank, made love, talked, and made love again. Hours passed in a haze of pleasure and chemical courage. "Are you ever going to leave him?" Job asked around midnight, tracing patterns on her bare skin. "It's complicated," she answered. "The house is in his name. My whole life is tied to his." "I got money," Job said. "Been doing good with my business." They both knew his business wasn't entirely legal. "Just give me time," she said, kissing him to stop further questions. Neither of them heard the taxi pull up outside. Neither noticed the front door quietly opening. They were lost in each other, music playing low on the Bluetooth speaker, when the bedroom door swung open, and their world exploded. Blood pooled on the hardwood floor, seeping into the cracks between the boards. 2 bodies lay motionless, Job, face down, 2 bullet holes in his chest, Lucis slumped against the wall, caught by a stray round that had passed through Job and into her left shoulder. Philip stood in the center of the room, the gun still warm in his hand. His military training had taken over during the fight, but now the soldier was fading, leaving just a man staring at the ruins of his life. He checked Job first. No pulse, then moved to Lucy, who was conscious but going into shock. "Philip," she whispered, blood staining her red dress darker. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." His combat medic training kicked in. He grabbed towels from the bathroom, applied pressure to her wound. "Don't talk. Help is coming." But he hadn't called anyone yet. His phone was still in his duffel bag downstairs. The neighbors must have heard the shots. Someone would call 911, or maybe not. In this part of Chicago, people learned to mind their business when they heard gunfire. As if reading his thoughts, police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "I didn't mean to," Lucid tried to speak again. "Shut up," Philip said quietly. "Just shut up." The sirens stopped outside. Car doors slammed. Flashlight beams swept across the windows. "Chicago police, open up." Philip set the gun down carefully and walked downstairs, hands raised. He opened the front door to find 4 officers with weapons drawn. "Don't move. Hands where we can see them." "I'm Staff Sergeant Philip Benjamin," he said calmly. I'm the homeowner. There are 2 people injured upstairs. 1 DOA. My wife needs medical attention. They cuffed him anyway. Standard procedure. As they led him to a squad car, neighbors emerged from their homes, filming with phones. Mrs. Jenkins from next door stood on her porch in a nightgown, shaking her head sadly. That poor boy, she muttered, fought for his country just to come home to this mess. The next hours passed in a blur. The detective interviewing Philip at the station was a middle-aged black man named Williams. No relation to Job, he assured him. Walk me through it again, Detective Williams said, recording device on the table between them. Philip told it straight: the early return, the strange car, the sounds upstairs, the gun under the bed, self-defense. His court-appointed lawyer, Patricia Morris, insisted the deceased had a weapon and a criminal record. My client is a decorated combat veteran who found armed intruders in his home. One intruder, Detective Williams corrected. The other victim was his wife, who was participating in a home invasion by letting her lover in. Morris argued the shooting was justified. At Chicago Med, Lucy underwent surgery to remove the bullet. Her parents arrived, her mother crying, her father stone-faced. They'd never approved of Philip. They thought their daughter could do better than a soldier. Now they sat in the waiting room, avoiding the news crews gathering outside. By morning, the story was everywhere. Soldier catches wife with lover. Deadly shooting on South Side. Afghanistan vet runs down wife's paramour in marriage bed. Tragic homecoming. War hero finds betrayal in blood. Social media exploded with opinions. He served his country while she served everybody else. Team Philip. 2 people shot over cheating. He needs to be put in jail. But none of it reached Philip in his holding cell. He sat motionless, staring at the wall, seeing only the bedroom scene playing over and over in his mind, wondering when exactly his life had derailed. Was it during his last deployment? Had the signs been there all along? That's our window. After that, we'll be set for life. Financial records showed Lucy had already spent some of Philip's combat pay on gifts, including the custom rims on his Chrysler. She'd also taken out additional credit cards in his name while he was deployed. Detective Williams testified about the sophisticated nature of the plot. They had multiple plans in place. Plan A was to arrange an accident during deployment. Plan B involved hired contractors in Afghanistan. They even researched ways to make it look like Taliban activity. During cross-examination, Lucy's public defender tried to paint her as a victim of Job's manipulation, but the recorded conversations told a different story. In one video, Lucy was clearly the one pushing for action. We need to stop talking and make this happen. I'm tired of playing wife every time he FaceTimes. Tired of listening to him talk about our future when I want a future with you. The testimony that hit hardest came from Chinas, Lucy's former friend from the salon. She had changed completely, taking long lunches with Job and returning with expensive gifts. One time, she laughed about Philip sending her extra money for their anniversary, saying he was basically funding their dates. The break in proceedings came when Gloria Benjamin spoke quietly to her son. Baby, I know this hurts, but God got you through war for a reason. He brought you home early for a reason. Philip just nodded, his face impassive. The only time he showed emotion was during the playback of the surveillance footage from his house, cameras he'd installed himself for Lucy's protection while he was away. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The footage showed Lucy and Job entering the house multiple times over months, often staying overnight. More damaging were their conversations on the back porch, smoking weed and casually discussing murder. Lucy, it's too risky here. It has to be overseas. Job, my guy says Afghanistan's perfect. Things go wrong there all the time. Lucy, just make sure it's after the policy kicks in and make it clean. He deserves that much, at least. In the courtroom, Lucy broke down during this playback, sobbing loudly until the judge ordered a recess. Her parents, sitting far from Philip's family, left the courtroom in tears. The preliminary hearing concluded with Lucy being held without bail. The judge cited the severity of the charges and called the evidence disturbing and substantial. Meanwhile, Philip's case moved toward resolution. Given the circumstances, prosecutors offered a plea deal: plead guilty to involuntary manslaughter, receive a sentence of probation with no additional jail time. His attorney advised accepting the deal, but Philip seemed hesitant. "If I take it, I'm admitting I did something wrong. Did I? A man comes into my house with a gun, plotting to kill me, and I'm supposed to apologize." The plea hearing for Philip Benjamin took place on a rainy Tuesday morning. The courtroom was packed: veterans in uniform, church members, family, media. Even some of Luce's former salon clients came to support him. Judge Miranda Chen addressed Philip directly. "Sergeant Benjamin, before accepting your plea, I want to ensure you understand its terms. While the court recognizes the extraordinary circumstances of this case, taking a life remains a serious matter." Philip stood straight, military bearing evident. "Yes, Your Honor, I understand." The plea agreement was read into the record: involuntary manslaughter, 5 years probation, mandatory counseling, no contact with Lucy Benjamin or Job Williams' family. Before accepting the plea, Judge Chen made an unusual statement. The court notes that while the defendant's actions resulted in death, they occurred in response to what evidence shows was an ongoing criminal conspiracy against his life. His service to this country, his clean record, and the unique circumstances warrant judicial mercy. Philip was fingerprinted one final time and released. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. "Sergeant Benjamin, do you regret coming home early? Any words for your wife? Will you return to active duty?" He ignored them all, walking to his mother's car with his family forming a protective circle around him. 2 weeks later, Luce's trial began. She'd rejected all plea offers despite her attorney's advice. The evidence mounted daily. Text messages showing her coaching job on Philip's military schedule, recordings of calls to offshore banks about moving money, testimony from Job's cousin about helping fake insurance documents, security footage of them meeting with a known hitman. The prosecution's closing argument was devastating. "Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't about infidelity. This isn't about a marriage gone wrong. This is about greed." While Sergeant Benjamin risked his life serving our country, his wife plotted his death. She watched him go to war but planned to ensure he'd never come home. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours. Verdict: guilty on all counts. Judge Chen, presiding over this case as well, showed no mercy at sentencing. "Mrs. Benjamin, you betrayed not just your marriage vows but basic human decency. You plotted to murder a man who served his country honorably, who trusted and provided for you." The court sentenced her to 25 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. Luce's sobs echoed through the courtroom as she was led away. Her parents left without speaking to anyone. The aftermath rippled through Chicago's South Side. Sharp Cut Salon closed temporarily, then reopened under new management. Shanice started her own shop, naming it Loyalty First. Job's car wash empire was sold off to pay legal settlements. His children from a previous relationship received most of the proceeds. Philip resigned from the Army, accepting a medical discharge with full benefits. He started counseling at the VA and eventually began speaking to veterans groups about trauma and betrayal. The house where it happened sold quickly, below market value. The new owners gutted the master bedroom, replacing the blood-stained floors. 1 year later, Philip sat in his new apartment, looking at divorce papers. His hand hesitated over the signature line as memories flooded back. High school prom, their wedding day, all the homecomings and farewells. His phone buzzed, a text from his VA counselor. "Group meets at 7. You coming?" He signed the papers. Outside, Chicago continued its endless cycle of renewal. New buildings rose, old ones fell, people loved, betrayed, healed, and moved on. But in certain quiet moments, in the spaces between heartbeats, the echoes remained. The gunshots on a summer night, the trust shattered like glass, the soldier who came home too early, the wife who plotted too late. As the years passed, Philip's life began to resemble something fragile, pieced together, but never fully whole again. The weight of betrayal still lingered, etched into his every waking moment. Each victory in his recovery felt muted, tarnished by the memory of the woman he had loved, the woman who had betrayed him in the most unimaginable way. There were days when he would find himself in the quiet of his apartment, staring at the walls, wishing he could go back in time to before the war, before the heartache. But life moves on, with or without us. He spent nights in therapy, learning to breathe again, learning to trust again, learning that forgiveness wasn't for her, it was for him. He didn't need to forget the pain. He just needed to stop letting it define him. One night, as Philip sat alone on his porch, the wind carrying the distant sounds of the city, he received a call. It was from the VA, an invitation to speak at another veterans group meeting. This time, however, there was a twist. He wasn't just being asked to share his story of survival. This time, he was asked to speak about healing, about finding peace after betrayal. He hesitated, but then he remembered something, those quiet moments between heartbeats when the pain felt too heavy to carry. He needed to share. He needed to let others know that even in the deepest of wounds, there could be light. He stood before a room full of veterans, his hands trembling, but his heart full. I've been to hell and back. And sometimes, hell isn't a battlefield. Sometimes, it's the person you loved more than anything. But if I can stand here today, it's because I realized I am not the sum of her choices. I'm not the sum of my pain. I am more than what was done to me. And I promise you, so are you. The room fell silent, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was healing. His voice cracked as he spoke, a man still mending, but strong enough to share the journey. Life goes on, but it doesn't have to be the same. You can rebuild. You can forgive. You can find peace. And as Philip stepped down from the stage, he felt it. The weight was still there, but it wasn't as heavy anymore. He had learned something in the process. Healing wasn't about erasing the scars, it was about learning to live with them and using them as reminders that strength lies in vulnerability. So, as the camera zooms out on Philip's face, worn, but hopeful, the lesson becomes clear. No matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how dark the night, there is always a way forward. The light, even if faint, can still break through. If you've been touched by Philip's story, or if you found a part of yourself in his journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because the healing starts with us, and together, we can turn pain into something beautiful. Thank you for watching. May you find peace in the hardest moments.